Custom sneakers. Sometimes it feels like anyone with a marker or a jar of paint considers themselves a sneaker customizer. But what's the difference between a doodle on a sneaker done during math class and a state-of-the-art custom? We'll look at that and more on this episode of From the Ground Up. Welcome to From the Ground Up. I'm your host, Pete Forster, and this episode we're looking at custom sneakers. For the right artist, any pair of sneakers can be a canvas, and some of the oldest and most iconic sneakers were. Look at the Converse All-Star and the original Jack Purcells. As long as there have been sneakers, they've been customized. Shoes have always been designed to have replaceable soles, and as long as a kid has a marker or a pen and some idle time, they've changed the way their shoes look. But now it's an art form and a way to talk to the community. Besides customs, there's little opportunity for fans and consumers to express their desires to the brands they buy from. If consumers want something that the brands aren't offering, customs allow the consumer to make it real. Whether it's a paint job like what Mosh does, a reconstruction like JBF Customs, or completely reimagining a shoe like Shoe Surgeon, this specific form of artistry opens up a world of possibilities. Of course, each of these artists studied and trained and practiced for years to get to the level they're at today. A question that keeps coming up is, what's a collaboration and what's a custom? What's the difference? Does a collaboration require a creative back and forth, or is it enough that an artist is using a brand's property? What's up, guys? We are here with Gia, creative consultant and resident Highsnobiety swag daddy, George Ocampo. We're gonna talk about some custom sneakers. Thanks for joining me, guys. So my first question for you guys is, do you think custom sneakers are art?
I think they are a piece of art in themselves, and sneakers have become this sort of really popular canvas, especially lately, as like this form of self-expression. You know, this is someone's craft. You know, they're either remaking something, rebuilding something, they're putting their own take on it, they're painting on it, they're doing something with it that's very much themselves, and they're using the sneaker as sort of the medium for that. So in that sense, I definitely see sneakers, custom sneakers, as a form of art.
I agree with you to a certain extent, but I see the opposite end of that. I think people use sneakers now and they call it custom, but what they're doing is slapping a logo on it and then selling it. You're buying into a name. Like, I think Virgil is a perfect example of the collab. Like, I love the Hyperdunk. Do I like it with all of that Virgil branding? I'm not sure. Like, I think that in the context of what actually is art, sneakers are a very trend-driven market right now, and I think that's the way they kind of use it in the art world.
So what you were saying, George, is like, just because someone is remixing a shoe and has some sort of a creative process, it raises this object to the level of art. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I would say so, yeah, because they're doing something with their own hands, they're doing something that came from their own mind with their own hands, and bring it to life, you know, and it just happens to be on a sneaker.
So in recent times, customizing off-the-rack sneakers has kind of exploded as a trend. But that trend goes beyond just writing on your Converse Chuck Taylors with a Sharpie, like we all did in high school. Certainly, Harlem's Dapper Dan comes to mind as one of the earliest recorded examples of a sneaker customizer, more specifically his Nike Air Force Ones that featured custom Gucci panels. Fast forward to today, and guys like JBF Customs and the Shoe Surgeon are taking that legacy to the next level, using actual cobbling techniques to elevate general release sneakers like the Air Force One. In fact, the Shoe Surgeon in particular has gained a reputation for using exotic materials like python leather. Social media has also created a platform for lots of other smaller customizers to allow their products to reach a wider audience. Guys like Free Customs, Panda Customs, and Mache Customs have also used social media to put their own stamp on the custom sneaker world. From techniques like painting, embroidery, and even inkjet printing, new methods of sneaker customizing are basically being innovated every day. Perhaps the best recent example of how the custom sneaker world contains so much viral potential is Joshua Vides. He's a Los Angeles-based artist who used simple Sharpies and markers to really accentuate the silhouettes of sneakers, giving you the impression that you're looking at a comic book. As social media has homogenized the landscape of sneakers and resale prices create a line in the sand between what is hot and what is not, custom sneakers are another way to stand out. For the names we mentioned before, customizing kicks is a big business. But the big names in the industry like Nike and Adidas have also noticed. Nike has Nike ID, Adidas has My Adidas, And similar programs are being offered by Vans, New Balance, and many others, all with the efforts of quenching our thirst for personalized product that no one else has. Whether it's screen printing your own shirts, making your own mixtapes, or drawing on your sneakers, this DIY attitude is a huge part of sneaker culture, streetwear, and the world that Highsnobiety writes about every single day. So as soon as you're done watching this, go out and do it your damn self. Now back to New York and Pete.
What's up? We are here with Kelly Hice, the mind behind SuperKreep. We are in Brooklyn.
This is the studio I'm currently blessed to work out of, yes.
So how long have you been doing this? Not just in this studio, but...
I've been making clothes, reappropriating vintage or designer clothes for probably about 5 years now.
Okay.
More specifically, Louis Vuitton or Gucci reworking over the last 2 years. I really focused on just that and trying to be impactful with those logos.
How does somebody start? How does somebody like jump into doing what you do?
My entire process, my entire mindset started from thrifting. I was thrift shopping almost every day, and I would just find vintage pieces or designer pieces that were either damaged, stained, sizing was off, but I still wanted to use those textiles somehow. Back 5 years ago, I started how everybody kind of gets started sewing, like a pocket tee or something like that. And then it just evolved more and more. I wanted to advance my skill set. I moved on to baseball caps, small bags. I used to do sole swaps. I was skateboarding, so I took a Jordan 5 and put a vulcanized sole on it so it wouldn't be as bulky. And I could feel the skateboard and everything. So I just started from trial and error. I never had any sort of formal training or anything like that. I just went for it. A lot of people like, oh, my style's different. I wasn't necessarily trying to be different. I wanted the same classic silhouettes and look, but I just wanted to implement these different textiles that I was finding. To say anyone trying to get into what I'm doing, I would say just go for it.
So one of the things that we're trying to sort of like figure out the distinction between is where's the line between a custom and a collaboration. It can get tricky, especially when things are happening behind the scenes, like, hey, take this fabric and make some stuff, totally unofficial. Where do you sort of draw the line? Where do you think a custom turns into a collaboration?
I never look at any of my designs as like a custom or anything like that. I'm trying to take everything down to the root. I'm trying to take it down to the fundamental base of what this product is, whether it's a shoe or a pant. I want it to be a classic, fundamentally sound silhouette. I'm always trying to build something from scratch with one of my favorite classic silhouettes in mind. I don't really look at myself as a customizer because I'm not just like adding on to something pre-existing. I want it to be all mine from the beginning, from scratch. I'm positioning myself with my talent or my skill set to be able to collaborate and not just be a custom. They can look to me for stuff going beyond just a custom look.
We already know that fan fiction isn't part of canon, and if a brand is going to give a full list of their releases for that year, they're not going to include something that wasn't officially sanctioned by the brand. A collaboration would be on that list, implying an actual exchange of ideas. So I feel pretty safe in saying that if it's not officially sanctioned by a brand, it's a rogue creation, and that rogue creation would be a custom. But sometimes those lines get a little blurry. We've seen Jeff Staple do legit collaborations with Nike, see any of his pigeon dunks in all of their forms, but then also used the Nike ID customizer programming to create nearly unauthorized projects, like with the Pigeon Air Max Zero and the Air Max 90 Hyperfuse. That line has gotten blurrier and blurrier as brands work with customizers to execute new ideas, even if they're not officially approved or unapproved. These ID programs are incredibly popular, empowering consumers to have a hand in the creation of what they wear, and that can be inspiring. First we had Nike ID, then My Adidas, and now it seems like every brand has a way to invite fans into the creative process. More recently, Nike and Adidas have set up shop to allow sneakerheads to customize in person at their stores and creative studios. It looks like that's the new wave. Say, your favorite customizer off Instagram. You hire them, you give them a pair of shoes, they paint on it, or they, change the paneling, put on a new piece of leather. Do you consider that to be on the same level as, say, an Off-White collaboration or just a pair of, dunks that you found on the wall?
I think a custom piece it's a one-of-one for a reason, you know what I mean? Like, it's for me. It's not for me to wear on the street and for you to see and be like, I know what those are. Like, I know how much you paid for those, or like, I know those are super rare. Like, it's really just like one-of-one. A custom shoe should just be for whoever's wearing it or whoever it's for. Like obviously you're wearing Off-White ones or something, like that's a flex shoe, you know what I mean? You're gonna walk down the street, you're gonna break necks, people are gonna be like, oh snap, what is he wearing? But I mean, that's not necessarily what I'm looking for if I were to do a custom shoe, and I don't think that's what custom shoes should be looked at. I mean, ideally they should just be for the people that are wearing them because they have some closer connection to whatever the story is behind that.
But aren't you buying into the consumer market of wanting that one-off? Like that's like my biggest thing about custom is like, yes, I understand what you're saying. Like, of course you're not wearing them on the street to get the same sort of like feel of wearing an Off-White sneaker. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you got them customized to wear because you want people to recognize that that's a custom shoe, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it's like you're still buying into that mentality of having that thing that, is on a pedestal and like people might not have access to or is not accessible. And like, so for me, that kind of kills what the idea of custom is now, is that it's no longer for me about like creating this shoe that is so, like for you. It's more about like creating this shoe for you to be seen. And that's the way I see custom culture now. And I think social media has a really, really big influence on that.
Why?
Because, social media makes everything accessible. I mean, off the top of my head, brand or influencer like Lil Jupiter, things like that. Like, he reappropriates these sneakers, and yes, like at the end of the day, they're like designs that he made on Photoshop maybe, but it's still a very accessible market. And like these young influencers or kids see that and they want that, and then they find other sneaker meme accounts that kind of create the same market. So for me, it's like a very accessible thing. Like, you no longer have to really go into a sneaker store to see what sneakers are. And that's kind of sad for me, I think.
Customs allow fans to see what's possible. Where collaborations push the brands to find new arenas of expression, customs offer a direct line from the consumer to the brand. And sometimes we see that line have an effect. I will forever credit Shoe Surgeon's innovative custom Justin Bieber Supras for that spike of Supra acceptance years ago. And Cloth Surgeon's soul-swapped Air Force Ones caught the attention of nearby sneaker retailer, Offspring, catalyzing a three-way collaboration with fans. Customs can be an endpoint, a way for an idea to be realized, or a beginning, a way for an idea to spark new frontiers. That's it for this episode of From the Ground Up. Please drop down in the comments below. Let us know what your favorite customs that you've ever seen are. Until then, I'm Pete Forster. We'll see you later.